I just listened a few minutes ago to Khyentse Rinpoche's introduction to Khyentse Vision, and I love that. It's exactly how I always felt. And I remember one sentence in one of the Dharmas of Jamyang Khyentse where he says that he quotes Padmasambhava saying that all wisdom teachers in the future will be my emanations. So that settles that. All the great masters we have met are the emanations of Padmasambhava. In other words, one family. And also many centuries later, in one of the Dharmas of either Taksam Lingpa or Samten Lingpa, the biography of Yeshe Sogyal in one of the poetry in the past, where she predicts masters in the future, she mentioned that Mapa and Atisha, Shakya Pandita, Kambopa, and one of the Kamapas are the emanations of Padmasambhava's body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities. And that is the same attitude as the Rime tradition. So it's not something invented 100 years ago. It's always been like that. It just emphasized that perspective of all being one family of wisdom masters. And Khyentse, Kongtrul, and Choling, they really spelled it out for people. And Jamyang Khyentse's and Kongtrul's, some of them, their disciples upheld that Rime tradition. Luther Wangpo mentioned. Also, when the great Kongtrul collected the treasury of precious dhammas, he asked Jamyang Khyentse for the layout. And he asked Kongtrul for getting permission from Padmasambhava, since they met often. And Kongtrul then in turn requested Jamyang Khyentse to write down all the dhammas that were missing over the centuries. And Jamyang Khyentse was not an ordinary wisdom teacher. He was like the number one, in that he had access to every single dhamma, past, present, and future. He had the big golden master key, you can say. So whatever had been revealed in the past and had gone missing, he could just write it down. That's why there's so many of his dhammas present in the treasury of precious dhammas, the Rinchen Tatsut. It says the author is Jamyang Khyentse, but he simply opened the big treasury and took out what was missing and wrote it down. He could do so without any preparation. He was a mind shaman in that case. He even wrote down the very first dhamma ever revealed in the land of Tibet by the first Chachen that had gone missing. It's called Sasum Drildrup, the combined three roots, sadhana. And I had the great fortune to connect with that at a young age, and it benefited me tremendously. And he also gave, Jamyang Khyentse also gave teachings on that to Mipam Rinpoche. He wrote down his teaching on it, so that should be included also in your collection. And I'd like to offer that since I translated it. So please accept that. And now I'm ready for questions. Generally speaking, the most masters, they use 9 sounds in a sentence. And I found that using 13 English sounds fits exactly, without having to cut off your heel and clip a toe, like Cinderella's two evil sisters. Are you familiar with that story? Yes or no? Cinderella had two sisters who wanted to put on that fantastic little shoe, but they had big, clumsy feet. Nothing wrong with that, but it didn't fit in the shoe. So they were asking, should they cut off the toes or shave the heel in order to make it fit? And sometimes to make the English words that are quite longer than the Tibetan short words, to make them fit in, so you have only 9 sounds in the for 9 Tibetan syllables, doesn't fit, and it becomes like a telegram in the old days. So in order to have something which you can both sing and understand, 13 phonemes is more practical. That is so important. To chant sadhanas without devotion or without respect is, of course, beneficial, but it misses the point. So in Tibetan, it's called dang. You mount the horse of the dang, so you can ride. In other words, the heart has to be filled with respect, love, and devotion. There's no sadhana without that. So the way of singing and the way of using a tune activates a different part of the mind. And also you can see people's faces when they sing in church. They totally change how they look like and the eyes look like they have switched off the normal mundane worries, hopes, and fears, and they're able to connect with something spiritual. Whatever that level that is, that doesn't matter, but it's really important to have tune when it's poetry, and also to have something that moves very easily over the tongue, just like Woolsten's way of putting words together, so that you don't stumble over the words as you read them. So it's very important for translators to read loud their own stuff. If not as an inspiration, then at least as a punishment. It was a joke.
So iambic pentameter is the Shakespearean meter, short, long, 10 syllables. I was just thinking about your 13 syllable idea and what comes naturally to me. And I think English language poetics tends to use, what's called iambic pentameter. So 5 iambs, which is, so I get mixed up if it's short, long, or long, short. So that'd be 10 syllables. So if you don't think about it, then that's the answer to my question. But I wonder if you wanted to comment, Erik.
I have tried different types of flow over the years, sometimes 14, 12, or 13, 11, 13, 11. And the most simple was 13, 13. If it's from 11, if it's from 9. If you're translating 7 lines, then it could be 11 in English. And then you can almost have the same tune. If there's a tune to the sadhana, you can almost have the same tune. Try it out. Don't just take my word for it. Just try out and see what works for you. And if it's really awful, try it out with not no other people around. And you can sing it outdoors, but sing it from your heart and with joy, and then you will find out whether it can communicate that the sentence from Tibetan in English. I would encourage translators to sing not only from Tibetan, but also other songs. You need to have song in your heart in order to get song on the screen. Additionally, there is a difference between translating the words in a very pedantic way and then getting the meaning across. The optimal is to have both, but the meaning translation is more important, and then have the word for word as good as you can, as well as you can. And that balance you have to develop as a skill of a translator. It may not come during the first 1 or 2 years. So just to try your best in the beginning and then make it better as the years go by. Yes?
Thank you.
But for beginners, I would suggest that don't rush so much to present translations. Work as an assistant of the older translators in the beginning, and also check what others have done so you can do it better, and not repeat the same mistakes. Of all the practice texts, I would suggest that you do the practice, and then once it gets under your skin, then you translate it later. Because then you are speaking something you are already familiar with, rather than sitting in a dark room with no light on and then trying to express it. When you translate something, don't use a dictionary. Don't meaning do not use a dictionary. You should already know. One tip is ask the Khenpo that is sitting right next to you. Khyentse has educated a whole anthill full of Khenpos. You will ask him to spare some. That has been the tradition from Tibet. One Pandita, one Lotsawa. Don't sit alone and grope in the dark. It's useless. Language in Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's collected works differ a lot. He wrote since he was a child. And if I may make a suggestion, the first thing that he wrote, which is included in the Nyingma Karma, is his commentary on the Heart Sutra that he wrote as a young child. Start with that one. But the language in that is very different from what's later on. And since he augmented so many different traditions and styles, then he's not one person. Of course, we relate to each other as we are one person, and we have one style. But Jamyang Khyentse is many people and many styles, like under one name. So it's a huge task. He's more than Da Vinci or like that. It's much more than that. So why not get familiar with all the styles he used, and then spend some months on that. Read through a lot before translating. Just soak yourself in it. And then start. And when you translate, the sadhanas that he wrote, spend some time doing that sadhana with deep sincerity, so that you connect with the essence of what that is. So you can try and be it as well as you can, and then express it, rather than describing a house from the inside, from the outside. Move in, live there a little bit, and then sing a song about it. You bow down 3 times, make an offering and then a request, and say, please teach me this topic, which is secret. And I've reached so far in my practice, and I would like to do this practice now. There's no point in translating practices that you don't use, then nobody else might use it. So let at least one person do that practice, and that is you. And then after that, you translate it. I know this is a tall order, but I thought about this and I don't see any other way. Otherwise, it's like me giving a lecture on speaking Mongolian. I never been to Mongolia and I can't read it. I don't know the language. It's useless. So first, get in under the shirt of that deity or that practice, so that you feel this is close to home. I can be this way, and then you express it. And if you don't have a song in your heart yet, then sing the Vajraguru mantra or the 7-line supplication to Padmasambhava with a tune, if you have a tune, and sing it so that just like Tulku said, like you're a little child who have gotten lost. Don't a particular song of yearning and despair and the joy of meeting again with the hope of that. And in other words, complete sincerity. That sincerity you need to find in your heart. Otherwise, it's like an academic counting grains of rice. Becomes very dry, can't eat it afterwards.
To know, for example, if we are in the tradition and when we have practiced and are asked to translate a text or in general translate it, like, for example, the chariot that you sent us, it touches secret topics. How to deal with these when we translate and think of the readers who will read that afterwards? Will the reader be allowed to read the same thing as kind of like we heard as instructions from the guru? You know, I feel very awkward and it feels very wobbly. So I rather don't translate these things at all.
That's very simple. That particular chant is chanted in almost all the monasteries that I have spent the time in, and everybody walk in and out. So it's not secret to hear the song. So the translator must translate it, not explain it. So those are 2 different things. And I don't know if you heard my talk from the day before. Don't clutter up the translation with explanatory notes. That's a different topic. Explanation and translation is not the same. Translating Buddhist texts should only be done by practitioners. Other people should keep their hands off. It doesn't belong, especially Vajrayana, does not belong in the hands of people who have not received empowerment, doesn't have a lineage, and have received no explanations. You don't have to make a law about it. Just ignore those attempts. Those are just distractions for innocent people. It's a sure sign it's too early to translate. Work more, practice more, study more. But also, not all lamas are wisdom teachers. And regard the act of translation as the practice. Start with refuge and bodhisattva vow, and with the vast intent, may this benefit countless beings, not only the ones who need this text tomorrow morning, but all the unknown people who connect with it in the future. Then you recite the mantra of the deity, or if it's not a sadhana practice, then the one that is your yidam, or preferably some type of Manjushri, or Padmasambhava and Manjushri combined. And then you put the words out as well as you can, as coming from the heart of your yidam deity down onto the keyboard. And then it is as well as you can, and then that's it. There's a lifeline tomorrow morning. Until now called deadline. Let's change that into lifeline. It's inauspicious. And then you pass it on to the others. And then that's as good as it gets this day. The other remark I made was more generally speaking. People I've seen are very much in a rush to get something published, and often to get their name on the front cover also. And that is very much in contradiction with the whole spirit of the Buddha Dharma. Each one is individual. I don't remember exactly all of them, but many are Yangte, some are Gomde. I don't know if he revealed any physical dhammas. But think again, yes, he did, because he has all 7 transmissions. Kababdun. So there must be also.
Thank you.
All the dhammas of Chökyi Nyima, many of them are a combination of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's mind and Chökyi Nyingma's activity. So their blessing lineages were fused together, and thereby became much more influential and more blessings that way.
Needs in trope nam tok yingsu pe kewa mepa donging o a macho chakya chimpo ngangdu hong gangsha rangjung ngang ne kyab sudro.
Beautiful. Yeah, just leave the syllable exactly as it is at the end of the line. You don't translate it. Dharma is not only I, it's also identity. And the word I or identity is not banned from the Buddhist texts. Dangi Chenmo is used many times. So don't be scared of that. You can also say I, no problem. Just don't add it in if it's not in the text. The Buddha said, only I and people like me can truly understand the mind of another person. So he's not afraid of using the word I. But it's good to, like I mentioned the other day, to have an understanding of, and at least a taste of egolessness in order to translate Buddhist texts. I think I said that that's the minimum requirement, is to have some taste of that the I is unfindable. so that love and aspiration and respect becomes centerless. And please make that a request from Erik, that everybody has at least that, not realization, that's too much to ask, but at least a taste of it. So you don't get scared in the middle of a text.
Erik, I'm trying to get this project up and running, and as you can imagine, there's all kinds of enormous challenges and difficulties. And one of the things that we've been talking about recently is the style and voice of the project, and how different genres will require a different kind of style of language. But one of the things that comes up again and again is a push by the academic section of a translation group to prioritize accuracy and meaning, and have this kind of standard of academic rigor applied to the text. And then there's this other competing element, which is this desire to make the text just feel incredibly inspiring and beautiful, and not worry about the academic rigor and accuracy of meaning quite so much. But the problem is that as the director of this project, I'm kind of, it's really, I have to balance these two things. But I wanted to hear from you what you think about that, and whether we should be trying to balance it at all, or what we should be doing with that factor.
So you are the referee?
I'm the referee and the pusher.
Yeah. So just take it easy and see what comes up. This is a big project. There will be time for, when you throw rough semi-precious stones together in a drum, they get smoothed and polished by rubbing off on each other. So put them together once in a while and we'll see what happens.
Thank you. That's great advice.
Because Jamya Khyentse was both, without conflict. And there are many other nuances also. But the most important is, can it be used by other people? Can it be understood? Or is it like Chökyi Nyima Rinpoche once said, is it like drinking sand? Yeah. Yes. Poetry, you should be able to sing it without the text. You can remember the song because it is in rhythm or meter, so you don't need a text. At Minderling, the monastery in Tibet, when monks went to the assembly hall, they brought no books. They knew everything by heart. And one of the reasons why it's possible to remember so many things by heart, just like Beatles, is because it has a rhythm or a meter, and you don't need text any longer. You didn't see John and George stand there with the microphone and their text. They could just sing it. Why? Because it's a song. So we shouldn't translate songs into abstruse prose with brackets and parentheses and italics and footnotes all over the place. It's awful. So please, with joint palms, I say, please bring an end to that nonsense. This is a practice lineage. It's not a scholar lineage. Jamya Khyentse was one of the most realized people in the whole history of Tibet. So we can't totally walk in his shoes, but at least try to fit, even though he probably had feet as big as this. Urgyen Rinpoche, when he came back from Tibet and came the first time, he brought Jamya Khyentse's vest, like sleeveless jacket, and also his skirt, and they were huge, as large as Tulku Rinpoche. So it's very hard to walk in their shoes, figuratively speaking, as well as literally. Jamya Khyentse was once asked by another teacher, who will have the greatest benefit for beings in, among you three, Khyentse, Kongtrul, and it was Paltrul. And he said the greatest benefit will be by Kongtrul. His Jordan will be the most vast reach everywhere. And who is the most learned among you three? And he said, that's Paltrul. No question about that. He's the most learned. Then who's the most realized? And then Jamyang can say, well, that's me. Because he had access to everything. But an amazing master. And Tulku Urgyen's grandmother met him and and told exactly how he looked like, how he spoke. She could imitate his voice and what he wore. And so Tulku Urgyen learned from his grandmother to imitate Jamyang Khyentse's voice. And I have it on the tape somewhere. He had a very deep voice, like that. It was huge and impressive, awe-inspiring. And he didn't have too many attendants cluttering his room. So they didn't have thermoses in those days. He had a terracotta pot that you could pour from, like a mega teapot, British style. And then charcoal or made from cow dung underneath, and then a fan. So he would keep his own tea warm that way and pour it himself. And sometimes when drinking tea during an empowerment ceremony, the master will usually take off his crown and put it and then drink tea. Not Jamyang Khyentse. He kept it on, the Guru Rinpoche's crown, and drank tea at the same time. He hadn't that rules and regulations that he needed to follow. He was like the deity in person, Padmasambhava in person, Vimala Mitra and King Trishan Dessen combined incarnation. So he could basically do what he wanted. And it was a shame that during his life, many people regarded him as Sakya or as Nyingma, but he was everything.
Sorry, do you have anything else, any other kind of advice that you could give the project as a whole, the translators or the editors or anything at all? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, you could ask Dzogchen Khyentse Rinpoche to write a 4-line sadhana with a mantra for Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo that you can learn by heart and say the mantra like 100 times before you begin, each time you translate something. So you can really connect, and then at least imagine that Jamyang Khyentse is in your heart or in your throat when you translate or when you talk about it, so that there is no this long separation that you're translating something by a historical figure. That is a no-no. You're translating something that comes out of your own heart. All right.
Thank you so much.
So my question was generally relating to the target audience, because maybe not talking directly about sadhana material, because of course this should be addressed for people who are actually practicing this, but also other material, historical texts or including biographies and mind training teachings and so on. So many readers nowadays simply sit in front of their laptops anywhere in the world and have thankfully great access to all this material. And that, of course, was not the case in Tibet. So on one hand, we have access to almost more material than that would have been the case in those days. But on the other hand, also very much divorced from the tradition. So that it's a very different situation that many readers and also practitioners find themselves in today. So how do you take, or do you take that into account in the translation work?
Yes and no, depending on the material. 40 years ago, like when Charles and I were kind of moving around in these circles, there was a very strong and serious dividing line between what was allowed and not allowed to even see, or even touch a book like Yeshe Tsogyal's Secret Life Story, one of them, and also the topics of inner yoga and Trekche, Chökyi, and Tumbo, and all of that was completely banned from being publicized. And then we see, as the years go by, rather than being a few hundred Western practitioners, there are like thousands and thousands and thousands, and many of those have received the transmissions by now. So what used to be secret is not so secret anymore. Everybody knows about it, but it's secret to hear about it. Something you already know and have read, not just on the internet, but in books. So the principle of secrecy has to be redefined. And especially one has to have a proper lineage of explanation, not just reading text as if you have the text, then you have the lineage. For most things, it's not like that at all. So please allow the poor lamas to still have something to explain. If you invite someone and then they explain, and then people from the back seat, they say, we already know all this, we read it on the internet. Leave something. And that's one thing. Another thing is how it's being translated from words into experience. You cannot find from a book. That is a combination of your personal process of being matured together with a competent guide who may be a wisdom teacher if you're lucky, or who may be a really kind-hearted Lama. Then the translation from words to meaning becomes possible. And then there's the next translation, which is taking place within you, the individual person, translating from meaning to experience. That's a very important part of translation work. And all the translators, they should really pay attention to that. So that translation is not only word, the realm of words and concepts, but moves into the meaning as well. So you can feel really confident that what you have translated as words and meaning becomes a part of your experience, because then it's possible for others as well. So you have to be the guideline for that. You, Christian, has to be the guideline for that. Until that, rely on a teacher. You can ask question, how much secrecy should it be under lock of key and key with, or can it be more available?
Thank you. And could I ask a follow-up on that?
Of course.
Now, relating not necessarily secret material, but other philosophical or mind training texts and so on. Some translators, who have done pretty incredible work actually in the recent years, have also added a lot of layers of additional material into their publications, which can be in the form of long introductions or appendices, a lot of footnotes and so on. And sometimes I find it incredibly helpful, because all the knowledge and the time that the translator has spent that helped them produce the translation is actually also available then to the wider reader. And so I think on one hand, it's all this effort which is actually then beneficial for the reader. But then on the other hand, and that's of course a concern that I think many people here would share, is that it's not easy to find highly qualified teachers nowadays that also have the humility to state when they simply don't know something. And this is absolutely not for the translator to take the role as a teacher, but sometimes in course of their research, the translator would have acquired some knowledge, which I think is very useful to safeguard in all this extra material. So would you agree to that it's important to safeguard this knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It depends on the translator's motivation. Is the introduction really written to help and to clarify, or is it a way of self-aggrandizement? That we need to really check. It's the same as when you buy a vegetable burger. There's always wrapping. You don't just get it a slap in the hand and then you put it on your plate in the supermarket. There's something around it, and there's text on that, what's in it, its name, and how it should be talked about. And that's the bare minimum. And anything more than that is like having wrapping upon wrapping upon wrapping. So it should be useful. Otherwise, it's encumbersome. In other words, a drag. I got one book once where 80% was the translator's introduction, and then 10% the book itself, and the extra 10 was the glossaries and footnotes. Mm-hmm. And one gets a feeling of being a little cheated. So that's the extreme. But motivation is helpful. And I think I can mention Wolfstan again in Dodon. He writes very good introductions. You can feel his good heart through them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I have been instructed by my teacher to, whenever translating sadhana text, particularly pertaining to treasure revealed sadhanas, to maintain the absolute strict order, word order from the Tibetan into the languages that is being translated into. And I wanted to hear a little bit of your advice regarding that. Sometimes it seems quite impossible. So what do you
Unless you are German. Unless you are German. The verb comes at the end. So that kind of strictness, maybe you need to discuss this with your Lama, whoever it is, that the strict word order in Tibetan and English is not the same. It becomes impossible. The very wonderful teacher, C.R. Lama, he emphasized that a lot. So his word translator was tortured trying to write each word underneath. And then he couldn't do it, so he had an extra line with the translation so it could be read also. So he had like Tibetan phonetics, strict word order with one word at a time, and then a fourth one for translation. So it flows in English. I think that's going a little too much to an extreme.
Okay. Thank you.
I wouldn't call it a translation. It's more like an on-the-spot dictionary.
Thank you.
But I would like to add, don't take anything I say as any law or a new rule. You individually, you are responsible for making the choices.
Yes, it was when you were speaking about the realization of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo and the benefit of control and the learnedness of Petro. You said that like Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo just had everything. What did you mean by that? That he had like access to everything, or yeah, I couldn't quite make so much sense of that.
Yes. he had access to all the Dhammas revealed by Padmasambhava, past, present, and future.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
I would love to be able to even imagine how that would look like from inside his mind, but I don't even reach to the dust beneath his feet, so impossible.
Mm. Oh, okay, that's the vastness, and then all the collections he did, like in his on his journeys, plus all the Dharmas. It's like, it's amazing.
He could have written or dictated probably 1,000 times more than what you have in the collection. Buddha,
Oh.
what the Buddha taught in the physical realm, it would take 500 large elephants to carry. And what we have today as a Tipitaka can easily be carried by one elephant.
Yes, I have a question from my friend Azuki from Japan. He would like to know how you engage in translation and retreat. For example, how many sessions do you do, and when and how long, and do you normally translate in the second session or in the afternoon?
You decide that.
Thank you.
You decide it yourself, but be reasonable.
And for you, we have these 7 trainees who've started our translation course, and they've already all been at Rangjung Yeshe Institute or other places, so they have a good knowledge of Tibetan. But we're trying to work out the best way to take their knowledge that they have and really turn them into experts who are capable of getting a Jamin Khyentse Wangpo text and being confident enough to translate it correctly. Would you say that the best thing that they can possibly do is practice and pray to Jamin Khyentse Wangpo? Is that more important than any kind of study?
As a beginning, yes. You need to combine what we in the West call brain and feelings, or heart and mind. Need to make a combination of that, not only one or the other. Like for brain or mind, you would say your reason, your good sense, and your intelligence. And for heart, we say conscience and love and respect. Need to combine these 2 factors so that you don't become a blind devotee who just chases around trying to make things done because out of the love for the divine. Not only that, or a dry scholar who tries to pick every sentence into syntax and particles. I once saw a BA written on how many times the word le appeared in a scripture. Completely ridiculous. But just try and be a reasonable, intelligent human being about this as well. And many things will be solved from that. I have a question. Have you written down the table of contents of the collected works of Jamin Khyentse Wangpo?
Yes, we're currently working on a catalogue that's quite thorough, looking at all of the texts that are in the whole Sungbum, and then we've also got a separate one for the Kababdin collection.
And do you have lists of additional works that are not contained in his collected works?
We've got Christian, actually, who you spoke to, who's working on an index of the Druptab Kundu collection. We don't yet have the Gude collection. So, but we're also collaborating really closely with the Lonja Nintik project and the Choling Tessa project and Adam Piercy and also Cedra, because they've already translated a lot of works from different collections, such as the Choling Tesa collection. So we're hoping to kind of collaborate a lot and co-publish different texts.
Wonderful. That would be in the spirit of the great master.
And we also, I remember your suggestion when I first wrote to you about making the index available so that we can really open it up to different translators choosing texts that they'd really love to translate.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I think Dan has decided to not ask his question right now. He's phrasing it later. So I think that's it from Daniel. Oh no, there he is again. Do you want to try again, Daniel?
It feels like there's just Parche Mambodua. I was wondering, Erik, if it's worthwhile, if you have any advice for, as we're meeting once a week, this particular group to work on various things to train people, giving some content as well as some specifics for translation style, translation theory. Do you have any specific advice for those of us who have to kind of organize the training structure? How much philosophy, for example, is necessary is something that I think a lot about, and how best to approach it. So if you have any general advice about specific texts or topics, what we should not overdo, such as, too much Sema or Madhyamaka or something, I just wanted to ask your thoughts. Thank you.
Yes. Do what you love to do. And if you're a group who love to do the same, do it together. If some of you love to sing together. What you have translated, then you can send it to each other, and everybody tries to sing it as a group and test it out that way. If you hate to sing, then go into some other texts and try to read it for each other. If you are not on Zoom of this quality, then it becomes like the 19th hell. Then, but at least cooperate as you go along, instead of each person by themselves try to do it, and I did it, and then when it's finished, then share it with others. Share it as you go along, especially if you're a beginner. And if you're a complete beginner, don't work on your own translation. Recheck for a year or two other people's translation with the Tibetan and the English or whatever language, and then be the assistant and say you're missing one word there. And that's a great service for the senior translator to find out that one word was missing. It's not always possible to do it by oneself. So in that way, cooperate on many different levels. But you do it because you like doing it. Not for the glory, not for the money, but for love. Over.
Christian, you have a question?
Well, if there's no one else asking a question, I would like to ask a personal question to Erik, if that's okay. In particular, yes. with your experience translating for Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, do you have any heart moment, a heart with a, not heart, but heart that brings you the most joy thinking of Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche and your work translating for him, that you would like to share with us?
Whenever he mentioned the name Jamyang Khyentse Wangbom, or Kongtrul, or Choling, he would get tears in his eyes. And he would sometimes do like this, or stop for a moment, and so that his voice came back. That kind of love, respect is so precious. And we need to find that in ourselves. And in whichever way you can translate with deep sense of respect for every sentence. Then later the readers, they will be able to feel that. There are some invisible strings connected between sincerity and respect, and then the reader's mind. You can't weigh them, you can't measure them, but they are there. There's also the opposite. Things translated without sincerity or respect becomes a little repulsive for the reader. Also, it's invisible. Could you hear that?
Yes. Thank you.
And it's fine for grown-up men to cry. Christian.
Actually, I was just yesterday and the other day going through the life story of Khyentse Wangpo, and it's completely overwhelming just to see what he has done in his life. It's like a different species altogether. It's not like, it doesn't seem to be normal, is not the right word. So in one way it's incredibly inspiring, and in another way it's frightening also to yeah.
Yeah, he's not like a normal historical person, like a king, Henry VIII, or like that. Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo was a combined incarnation of many, many different masters. And scholars often object and say, that's not possible. How can he be an incarnation of someone who lived in this century and also of another person who wasn't dead yet, but who lived at the same time? How is that possible? And even worse, it's not possible. It doesn't fit into my worldview. But seen from a different angle altogether, not from the samsaric, linear time, narrow-minded way, then that is not possible. But from the realm of where all Buddhas are one, the realm of Dharmakaya or Sambhogakaya, many emanations occur at the same time. We don't have to understand that, but at least don't reject the possibility. At least be open-minded. And then many of the other things become possible too. The other day I read about how could the Bardo of Dharmata be known by someone who was born earlier than Karma Lingpa's explanation of the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
I didn't hear the beginning. How could? How
could the Bardo of Dharmata be understood if you haven't died yet?
I see.
Or by someone who lived earlier than Karma Lingpa in this and this century. It's complete nonsense. The enlightened masters have access to so many things. And one shouldn't be caught up in that kind of narrow-minded scholar approach. And especially when working with the collected works of a master like Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, be completely open-minded. Jamyang Khyentse had many enlightened disciples. Some were about to be enlightened, some were already enlightened, and they worked as his secretaries and scribesmen. And I'll tell you one little story. Shakyamuni, who came from a very poor family and practiced a lot. At some point in his life, he became the student of Jamyang Khyentse. And one night he had a dream where he entered Jamyang Khyentse's room, which was very small. And he asked for a particular empowerment during the dream. Jamyang Khyentse sat, as he usually did, in his meditation box, like kind of half bed, half meditation box. And Jamyang Khyentse began to give the empowerment, first the vast empowerment, then for the secret empowerment. All of a sudden, Jamyang Khyentse sat in union with a consort. And then Shakya Sri, he had the thought, hey, wait a second, isn't Jamyang Khyentse a monk? And then Jamyang Khyentse, he replied his thought. He said, it's your dream. So I'm not responsible for your dream. So I don't know how that is possible for a normal rigid mind to understand. In short, be very open-minded. Another thing I'd like to say, when Jamyang Khyentse passed away, the 15th Karmapa had a vision that there would be 25 known incarnations simultaneously. But only the 5 would get the name, the title, and only 1 would hold the seat. In other words, there are many, many others. And some may be known, some may not, doesn't matter. They all have their own purposes.
I have one short question. It's actually a detail. If you have ever heard the connection of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo and Jamyang Khyentse Wangchuk from the Tarpa lineage?
No.
Have you heard? No? Okay. No.
Erik, can you think of any other stories that Tulku Urgyen's grandmother told about Khyentse Wangpo? Is there anything else that you can remember from what she told Tulku Urgyen?
Yes, so when she came as a small child together with her mother, who was the Sangyom of the great Tattoo, Chökyi Nyima. And when they left the room, Jamyang Khyentse followed them all the way out. And his attendants say, he never does that. And they never met again. But also, in those days, a lama standing up for a woman out of respect was almost unknown. So that was one of the things. He had the same respect as to his guru and disciple. Chökyi Nyima, he regarded as both his guru and his student at the same time. Many of them had that double relationship. Just as in the case with Tulku Khyentse Rinpoche, he had that, he received teachings from people and he gave them teachings. It's not like either you're a student or you're a guru, not like that. He had that immense respect. And he says in the Tantras that when you respect a master, you also respect his wife and his children in almost the same way. And I've seen that the only few of the great masters I met, they have that and they show it. I don't know if they have it or not, but they show it. Tulku Khyentse Rinpoche was like that also. And when he gave the collected works of Chökyi Nyima, he made sure all of the attendees sat on the same level. He said, we have been each other's teachers and students so many lifetimes. So there's no reason why one should be higher than the other, except me. I'm giving the teaching, so I said higher. But another time it will be one of you. So Trushik Rinpoche, and there were 2 incarnations of Jamyang Khyentse who were attending. Khyentse Khyentse, who is in France, and Khyentse Khyentse, and who was the most naughty one, throwing orange peels at everybody who fell asleep. There were 2 incarnations of Chökyi Nyima, 1 or 2 of Jamgon Control, and many, many others. They were all sitting in the same level, and he regarded them with the same love and respect. And since he was the lineage holder of Jamgon Khyentse, and he showed the same attitude of non-sectarian, vast, open mind. And I have the feeling there are more to come of that caliber. Khyentse Khyentse is very much like that also. Even though he doesn't have the corpus, the same large body, he has the same large mind. But the other stories I have from Tulku, they are all in Blazing Splendor about Jamgon Khyentse Wangpo. I could only write down what I had on tape, not from my memory. I didn't want to depend on that.
Thank you so much.
There came a new face.
Thank you so much. I have a question regarding Jamgon Khyentse Wangpo's Rime approach in particular. And what I'd like to know is that what do you think is unique about the way Jamgon Khyentse Wangpo writes about and teaches the importance of Rime? Because Rime has come up in Tibetan Buddhist texts before his time, at least from the 14th century. So could you say what's unique about his approach to Rime?
I don't think there's anything unique about his approach or his attitude that is timeless. But the activity of expressing that is particular to that time, out of need. Buddha Shakyamuni was in the foremost example of the Rime attitude. He invited many other Buddhas to teach his bodhisattvas from different realms. One Buddha was invited because his unique quality was to teach through smell and fragrance, not through words, which is even wider than normal words. And many, many other Buddhas were invited by Shakyamuni to teach his assembly. That is completely Rime approach. Otherwise, it's I am the Buddha in this part of the universe and no one else. He wasn't like that at all. So Jamgon Khyentse is simply carrying on the same attitude as all enlightened masters. All are one as Dharmakaya.
Thank you so much.
There's nothing new about it. It's just when the general percentage of people become too sectarian and the lineages become too involved in politics, then somebody needs to say the word Rime. And then that becomes something new in that environment. But it's not new, it's timeless. Open mind didn't begin in the 19th century.
Thank you.
Erik, thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful workshop. If there's no more questions, I think we'll let you go because that's almost 2 hours. So thank you so much for your time and your kindness and your really, really heartfelt advice. It's really appreciated. And please keep our project in your prayers to help us be free from obstacles. Thank you.
I will. And please enjoy what you're doing. It's such a wonderful project. Do it do it gladly, happily, joyfully, with delight. It's something to be proud of in a centerless way, centerless pride. Thank you so much. Keep me updated about the progress. And I would also like to see samples of what you're coming up with, especially something that can be sung a little bit and make wishes that this project, once it's started, then the next step is to continue and to complete it. But it won't be totally completed while we are alive, because the you can say the combined efforts may not be enough for one generation. So leave it open that it can be polished finally off by some future people also. There's nothing wrong with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We do the sunamdi, tamche zipani, tapeni pe janam pamje shinkigana chi palong chupai, zipit sole droe sho.
By this merit may all beings reach all knowing, may slay the enemy ignoble deeds. From the stormy waves towards extinctness undying, from samsara's ocean may we all be free. In every single lifetimes may we never be apart from authentic teachers, Dharma's splendor to enjoy. From pleading all the virtues of the Bhumis and the Path, may we swiftly reach the Dharma kind, the Vajradhara state. Thank you so much. It was a joy. And please don't take me too seriously when I cut something. I mean it, but I don't mean it so seriously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Erik.
very much. Thank you very much, Erik.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Lovely to see your faces.